Never argue with an idiot. They will drag you down to their level and beat you with experience. What's your best real-life example of this? Anytime I've tried to explain marginal tax rates to an employee. Was arguing with this dude about something math-related. He didn't know how to read a study which involved statistics. Claimed he was in multiple app math classes. Tried saying that I probably don't even know basic integration. Gave me a common integration problem. He wrote it but forgot the minus sign, making it unsolvable. I pointed it out and he edited the comment to make it correct. Told him that some people can see when you edit comments. He claimed that he just capitalized a letter. On and on and on. I was listening to a podcast once, and the host articulated something profound in a very well-stated way. He said, I paraphrase, "I will never argue with a flat earther, or an anti-vaxxer, or any of those people. The reason is because that these people have made that into their whole identity. And they are prepared to address any possible argument I could come up with. And because I care about facts and truth and they do not. My only possible response would be, I'll have to look into that. I don't know off the top of my head." It doesn't matter that their response is incorrect or based on faulty research or has been rejected by the scientific community or whatever. By the time I discover that, they will be long gone and talking about how they won another debate. This is it in a nutshell. If you argue about an issue with someone who has made that one issue into the core of their persona, you will lose unless you are someone who has made arguing against that issue also into the core of your persona. Of course I know that Andrew Wakefield is a liar and a scammer, and of course I know that Apollo astronauts placed retro reflectors on the moon which can be used to prove that they went there and that their photos of the spherical Earth are real. Because I've done enough research to convince myself. But have I done enough research to convince someone who refuses to be convinced? And someone who has also done that research and come up with plausible-sounding nonsense to counter each of these arguments. Why would I waste my life doing this? Once worked with a guy who, by his own admission, got his rocks off by picking fights. He'd start an argument over the smallest thing. If you said it was white, he'd say it was black. Just to try to start something. The one that always stood out for me was the weather app competition. One day he asked me what temperature it was. So I read it off my weather app. He got all offended, because his weather app said it was a couple degrees warmer. So he decides we're going to have a weather app competition. He was going to chart what our apps said the temperature was. And at the end of the week, whichever one was closest to that day's high would be the winner. And the loser would have to start using the winner's app. To which I said, "What is your fucking problem?" Quote. So, yeah. For the first few days, he'd make a big performance about marching into my office, recording the temperature off my app, jotting down some notes, and walking off. This started on a Monday. He gave up after Wednesday, either because I was winning, or he was disappointed because, despite his best efforts, I just did not give a fuck about weather apps. Or maybe the boss told him to stop because I filed a complaint that this was bordering on harassment. This was best said. Never wrestle with pigs. You both get dirty and the pig likes it. George Bernard Shaw. People who tell me they feel like something is or isn't illegal, when I know they're wrong but insist they know what they're talking about. For the record, I'm not a lawyer yet. But I'm about to start my final year of law school. And my undergrad is in legal studies. In one particular instance, I took a very specialized course that taught drone law. The person I was this with kept telling me I was wrong because they felt like. *edited for clarity. Donald Trump, presidential debates. Presidential debates last few years. When I tell people to just reboot your computer and it will fix all their problems, and yet they won't because they said if you wait long enough it will shut down. When in reality it only goes to sleep. Then when I tell them they have to completely shut it down, they look at me like I'm an idiot and say they did. I tell them it seems like it, but it only went to sleep. They argue back. Flat earthers. Watching the news. The day before Biden's inauguration, a coworker told me the military would execute him live on stage and Trump would walk out to be named as president again. When I laughed and said there's literally no chance of it, he said, "Dude, what do you know? You work in a warehouse in nowhere. You don't know shit," ignoring that he's my coworker in the same warehouse. Reddit. I thought I had a no-lose argument going up against someone who believes in homeopathy. I left the discussion feeling like I lost somehow. For a short while, I worked as a line cook at a Cracker Barrel, and there was a little saloon-style door that led to the staff section. Kitchen, bathroom, etc. There was a staff-only sign on the door. Above the doors. And on the wall behind the doors at eye level. Usually if someone from the customer side comes in, they said, "Coming in," before opening the door. So they didn't hit anyone. But of course customers didn't know that. So when this dude opened the door and hit a waitress carrying a ton of drinks, we were reasonably upset with him. He said, "You should really put a sign up." We showed him all the signs. And he goes, "That seems a bit excessive." Social media debates. You won't convince someone they're wrong, you're screaming at a brick wall. Working retail. Especially when I worked in the tech shop a computer store. Trying to convince someone their $500 laptop is never going to be a gaming system no matter how many of the very few replaceable parts we throw at it can be exhausting. Even though they're wrong, they'll still carry on the argument, and then when you've convinced them, they'll say, "Yeah, that's what I said," trying to make you look the fool. Had plenty of arguments like that. I had a coworker for a few years. I tried and tried to give him advice on doing a job that I had been doing for years. He repeatedly told me he didn't appreciate my advice. That he had won awards in his past job and to stay in my lane. Finally we did a project together and he admitted that I really did know what I was talking about. And he actually thanked me. But he continued to gaslight people and be a narcissist. Not my story, but once my friend A, was having a friendly, turned sour, debate with another friend B, about how sometimes people just don't have a choice. In the context of, they can't just choose to live a frivolous life because of their family background, etc. Friend A proceeds to say, "What about starving children born in Africa? It's not like they had a choice." To which friend B answered, "WHO asked them to be born in Africa. Just don't be born there." That's when we knew.